we stand on God holy. Oh, Canada, we stand on God holy. Okay. All right. We have a very exciting meeting today. A wonderful guest speaker. I will have Al kick us off. Al, take it away, sir.
Good morning, President Tim. Good morning, fellow Rotarians. We have a guest. We have Mr. Hardy this morning. Nice to see you, Steve. And Grumpy, Sean, nice to see you. I haven't seen you for a long time. Great for you to join us this morning. So the Sergeant at Arms this morning. Just going to mention two great games last night: the Maple Leafs and the Blue Jays, and opening ceremonies, and it was terrific. But we're going to get right to our speaker this morning because this is special. It's a special morning. So you'll meet people in your Rotary life that will have an effect on your life, and you meet a lot of Rotarians, but only a few have a special effect. So this morning we're going to hear from a gentleman who had a big effect on my life, because my second year with the club, as president of the club, I met him at a Rotary conference. And within minutes of meeting him, I was going to the Dominican on a humanitarian trip. And my wife, who wasn't even a Rotarian, tapped me on the shoulder and said, "I'm going too." And that was the start of a friendship between the Wasaga Beach Rotary Club and our Rotary Club that lasts to this day. And that was the making of our club. When our members saw that they could pull off a humanitarian trip, not just once, but a few times, my goodness, that really galvanized us and made us what we are. So this morning, it is my pleasure, my distinct pleasure, to introduce a Rotarian who I will always remember as a man who had an effect on my Rotary life. So this morning, Steve joined the Rotary Club of Wasaga Beach in 2003. He is a past president and recipient of his club's Paul Harris Service Award. Steve is a multiple Paul Harris Fellow, a member of the Paul Harris Society and the Rotary Foundation's Bequest Society. He enjoys major donor status with the Rotary Foundation and is a graduate of our zone's Rotary Leadership Institute and District 7010's Leadership Academy programs. In 2005, Steve traveled to India to participate in a polio national immunization project. He has also inspected district-sponsored service projects in Haiti, the Philippines, and Cambodia. Steve served as an interim assistant governor for District 7010, Area 6, from May 2011 through to February 2012. Beginning in July of 2012, since Steve has organized and led 23 international service missions, participating in 3 others, and inspired donations of well over $500,000 to provide medical and dental community development services to poor, disadvantaged, and vulnerable people settled in Northwest Dominican Republic. In June of 2020, Steve rejoined the District 7010 leadership team for a 3-year term as District Grant Subcommittee Chair, and since 2021, also serves as faculty at the Rotary Leadership Institute. He is currently busily engaged as a champion for the Rotary Global Grant to fully equip a new community services center in the poor village of Pancho Mateo in the Dominican Republic. In 2022, Steve was recognized as one of only 150 people worldwide to receive Rotary International Service Above Self Award for exemplary continuing humanitarian service. Professionally, Steve retired in 2020 after 22 years of service as a commercial airline pilot with Air Canada. Before joining Air Canada, 1998, Steve spent 24 years in the Canadian Air Force, primarily as a fighter pilot. He is a decorated veteran of the 1991 Gulf War, a former member of Canada's favorite air demonstration team, the Snowbirds, and a graduate of the Canadian Forces Command and Staff College. During his military career, Steve worked underground for 3 years in Canada's Air Defense Command Center in North Bay. I think you must agree with me that when I say this man has had an effect on my Rotary life, what can you say? I want you to all join with me this morning to give a very warm welcome to a great
So to Governor Barb and President Tim, hardworking Tim, we just got it there, just in time delivery. I love that. Thanks for that nice and rather lengthy introduction, Al. And welcome to all my friends. It's a pleasure for me to come back here. I remember when you guys were brand new. I'm missing Doug. So he's out of the nest.
Yeah.
And you guys are on your own. That's good. Yeah, he did great service here at the Rotary Club in Innisfil. I'll get the club started, and it's very nice to see. Probably 10 years. How many years you guys?
No, it's, how many years now?
13 years.
Yeah, 13.
Like yesterday. Nothing to be babbling on about that stuff. I want to tell you some stories today about humanitarian missions, and but I want it to be interactive. So you can stop me at any time and ask me a question about what's up, what's going on. I'm going to just talk to the slides. It's not death by PowerPoint, running switches my nation. But I'm going to introduce you to the people of poor and disadvantaged people that live in the Dominican Republic, not very far from us. And I'm going to tell you their story. I'm going to tell you how they came to meet with Rotary, and show you some of the things that you can do, not only there, but anywhere in the world as a humanitarian through Rotary. And I always like to think of it in my way that, I mean, Rotary, one of the reasons I joined Rotary was that there were so many opportunities. I mean, if you look at the international website, it's just mind-boggling how large it is. But it's full of opportunities and experience. And damn the rules anyways. If there's a rule that's in your way, there's a way to get around it in Rotary. This is my friend, Matika. Matika lives in a place called Pancho Mateo. Next slide, Tim. Yeah. If you had the clicker, I'll take it. And I had an opportunity to go down to the Dominican Republic on a pre-scouting trip in 2010. I was the incoming president for my club. We were fantastic at writing checks, but in a kind of a group session leading up to my year, we kind of decided that we want to do an international hands-on mission within the next 18 months, and we got it done very quickly in that year. Good picture of my backside. Maybe you put it the other side. Yeah. And that's how we got started in this domain down in the Dominican Republic. But I want you to think about, you know, the service above self. Think about what you can do to mold your experience if you have this humanitarian bent in you. And there's a chap that I've been following, Dr. Jordan Peterson from the U of T. He's a little bit controversial sometimes. He's been out there a long time. He's a psychotherapist. He's a philosophy instructor, a teacher, professor at the University of Toronto and a couple other places. And I dare say he's nearly a philosopher too. What's going on? He's not always in tune with where we want our communities are going, but he's got some pretty provocative or pretty thought-provoking statements often. But one of the things that resonated with me, he's talking about people getting along with other people, and your objective is, you know, to be liked and to fit into the group. And life is, to use the kind of the, in a simple term, life's a game. There's many games played within it. And if you can get yourself in a position where people want to play the game with you, that's a good thing. And then you take it to, you know, getting the most out of your life. One of the things you can do to maximize your ability to enjoy the limited time that we have here is to engage in service to others. So we don't have to preach to the people here in this room generally, or all of that bent, but this is a chance maybe to revitalize that little seed, that spark, that little fire that's within you, to say, okay, well, maybe, you know, let's not wait any longer to take it to the next level. You know, because giving and serving for others is one of the most rewarding things you can do. And instead of thinking about yourself And well, he goes on to say, you read that probably by now, but you know, don't think about it, think of you as part of the community. And do things not for you now, but you in your community later. That community could be local, could be regional, could be national, could be international, but get out there and do it. Like my friend Sean, right here. He's a guy that gets out there. He's like me. Our carcasses are wearing down. We're starting to see that little light at the end of the tunnel. We understand that we still have time to live, but we better live that time. And he goes down on these humanitarian missions, and he's been on, I don't know how many down in the Dominican Republic working with these folks that he loves, and gives back, gives to those people. And they love to play with him. And that's a good signal in where he's at in his life, that it's working. It's working for him, it's working for his community. If there's a game to be played, he won't be picked last, that's for sure. I'm going to talk to you about heart and our mantra. And we have two kind of taglines. No sweat. One is saving lives, the other one is making communities better. In the Dominican Republic, and we've been doing it there since 2011. Next slide. Kind of a boastful statement, but I'm going to show you, and through maybe some of the stories, you'll get to understand that we can boast, but we can back it up also. We can demonstrate. I'm going to introduce some of the people that we save, and we're going to show you the ways that we've made the communities better, for sure. You've heard the HART. It's an acronym. Hispaniola Humanitarian Assistance and Relief Team. It's the international service arm of the Rotary Club of Wasaga Beach, essentially. We had the privilege when the program was just developing and getting this thing out the road. Your club, Innisfil, actually took the lead on one of the HART team missions. And indeed, you were HART for a brief moment in time. Next slide. Very quickly, just get you oriented. Pilots have to speak love map. So here's the map in today's presentation. If you want to get to the Dominican Republic, it's on an island. That's the island of Hispaniola. It's shared with Haiti on the west and Dominican Republic on the east. It's not far from Cuba, and it's a 4-hour flight from here. Go ahead, next slide. There's more about the island. It's a beautiful island. It's a maritime tropical environment. It's got lots of palm trees. It's got mountains. It's very lush green fauna and flora rather. And you've got beautiful blue ocean and beautiful blue skies with beautiful white clouds most of the time. It's a very, very pleasant place to live. It shares the island with Haiti. Two different cultures completely, and this is important to recognize. Haiti was settled by, or basically taken over by the French in the last century. The people were the descendants basically of slaves brought in from Africa, so as a result, they were dark skinned. The people in the Dominican Republic the Dominican Republic was settled by the Spaniards, and it's a mix of the indigenous Western Caribbean Indians and the Spaniards. As a result, they're more mulatto in skin tone. It's a little more subtle. It's a nice chocolatey, light chocolate. And so you can identify a Haitian and a Dominican just by the color of their skin. Right. They share the border go ahead, Tim, next slide. For centuries now, sugarcane was the major export in the Dominican Republic right up to the mid 80s. That was the case. They didn't have enough workers in the Dominican Republic to extract that cane and get it shipped and sold. As a result, they were continuously, decade after decade, inviting able-bodied persons from Haiti to come and work the fields, do that hard labor job. It's really a tough job, working in the raw fields. You know, you've got the sun, you got the rest of the environment, you got the vermin, you got the size of the crop itself, and the ability that you have to keep crap in the wet to get your quota. And I need a little bit of drink. I don't know, so grab me a little something wet.
Thanks, Marlene.
Those people came with the idea that the enticement was that they would have, you know, a good job, good security. They would have reasonable pay with reasonable living conditions. They said, sure, I'm in. Oh, here we go. And they said, next slide. The companies, there were public companies and private companies that own these sugarcane fields. And the country has got the sugarcane fields all over the place. Thanks very much. There's about 238 settlements, sugarcane worker towns. They're called bateys in their language, where they make these. Think of these. You remember that Fleabag motel that used to be a what was that highway?
400.
Yeah, 400. Think of that kind of a structure. These were built in the 80s, between the 60s and about the 60s, really. And it's got 8 units on one side, 8 units on the other side. It's all concrete block, concrete roof, and they're just block houses. There's enough room. They're 10 by 10. They've got no facilities. There's no air conditioning. There's no lights. There's no water. It's just a place where they could put a bunk bed, put 2 men and their personal equipment, and they would live in there. Of course, they had other outbuildings that were where they would feed them, and you could go in there and bathe and have the facilities there. So that's where they settled. Next slide. Lo and behold, in the mid 80s, somebody realized that the sugar beet was a crop in the United States that was closer to the major market, and also it was more economical to refine the sugar beet to get sugar. So almost overnight, the sugarcane industry in the Dominican Republic crashed. And with it, all the leadership, all the people who own those companies or ran those companies kind of disappeared, and the land got turned over to the government. And it's still sitting there today doing nothing for all intents and purposes. This is a picture in a town, Batey, called Pancho Mateo. And you're going to see more pictures of this. The road is here, and that used to be sugarcane, and it's been cut just because. Next slide. These are some of the Asian men that came over. They're a little older now. The LMA has passed away recently, so he's not with us anymore. And they're older now because, you know, when they came as young men, 20s and 30s, you take the time, okay, from the 80s, hey, they're getting on. Next slide. Just like my friend Fernando here. Fernando was actually the first manager of the Batey in Cangrejo, which is one of the villages that we do a lot of work in. Fernando's now well into his 80s, and you can tell he's had a hard life. Next slide. Here's a picture. That's an amazing picture. And there's the picture. There's a picture of the barrack blocks as they look today. Haggard, beaten down. Basically everything. The roofs are all cracked. They leak like sieves. And not really much of an upkeep. Next. This was LMA before he passed. He lived in this unit right here. So you can see each unit, boom, boom. And he's on his way to the bathroom. He's got his rinse in the bucket, and he needs the cane to get around. Next slide. That's his home. That was his home, really. A little bit of luxury because he lives by himself now. But you can see there's not much there. Next slide. This is an example of a sugarcane worker town, Batey, Cangrejo, one of Grumpy's favorites. You can see the original barrack blocks right here. This was an outbuilding that housed their kitchen and also where they stored their tools. And everything else since kind of a shanty town has evolved, because now that the men, you know, basically I can't go back to Haiti. Didn't really know how to get back to Haiti, had no ID, because the companies, when they folded, they took their documentation. And they just, oh, well, I don't know what to do. I can stay here and I'll survive somehow, which they have. And now they started families. Next. As the families grew, they needed the shanty town to grow. They attracted some women. And now that we're on basically generation 3, you have the original men, the original workers. You have their children, and their children are having children now. Next slide. third generation right there. And they're living in the same buildings or worse, next. I talk about disadvantaged and poor people. Why? Because these people have not been, the original workers don't have ID. So they're not really mobile. They can't really do much. They can't really go anywhere. And they've never got landed immigrant status. Some of them had applied, and the Dominicans had a program, but it went nowhere. So nobody got their landed immigrant status from the government. As a result, and since about 5 years now, the Dominicans have passed law 169-2, and what that said was anybody who has mixed race adults, like your mother's Dominican, your father's Haitian, is not eligible for citizenship. And they also made it retroactive. So people who had managed to get citizenship, it was revoked. And now we have a situation where these people are there, and the second and third generation, they're people without a state. They have nothing. They don't exist. They also, because they don't have citizenship in the Dominican Republic or Haiti in most cases, they can't vote. They can't own the land. If you can't own land, that's difficult because you live in a rural area. You could, if you had the ability to own the land, you could be a subsistence farmer and make do. You'd have a garden. Most of us have gardens here, right? They can do the same thing, and that makes a big difference. They can't do that. I've seen situations where they have planted gardens and the government comes in and bulldozes them over, takes them over. I mean, I think Grumpy was with us. We watched them. The cops came, they tore down the fences. They didn't bulldoze the fields because they had nice banana trees. And but they were definitely trying to get the people off that land. You can't work legally on the open economy, so you're working underground or you're working in the homes as now the women are working as domestics. The men are doing mule jobs. They're working all the tough, dangerous jobs on farms or at construction sites. And generally, the men are doing the hard jobs. What they do is they do the mule job for about a week, and that's when their body starts to break down. They've got enough money for that week that they can survive for the rest of the month. They take 3 weeks off and then they go back at it again, work for 1 week till their body breaks down. And I mean, they're doing mule jobs, middle of the day, lifting hard, heavy loads, dangerous stuff, getting injured all the time. But that's the employment situation as it is. Health services, just like here, if you get injured, you go to the hospital. If you don't have insurance or you can't pay, you're denied service generally. Down there, it's a strict rule, man. If you've got black skin, you're not coming in here, and you'll see some examples of that later that are sinful. Water and sanitation, these bateys, there are municipal governments that these bateys fall under their jurisdiction for provision of general infrastructure. But those civic entities don't really work very hard to make sure that they bring them to these people. So as a result, there's very little water, fresh, it is slightly potable, but it's a makeshift system. And like garbage removal is problematic. All the things that electricity is nothing guaranteed. I know in Kingrado, water comes on twice a week for 2 hours at a time. That's it. Then they shut the water off for these people. Boom. And in lastly, education is really wicked. I mean, that's the way out of one way out of the poverty trap. These people are not allowed to go to school, the kids, till they're 8 years old. Now, can you imagine, basically, if you're a lot of single parent families, because the men are really migratory because they can't provide, so they move on, and the women's kind of settle and do the best they can with their families. So essentially, there's not a lot of homeschooling going on because their parents are basically ignorant and haven't been educated. A lot of them are illiterate. Anybody over, for sure, 40 years old can't read. Absolutely, these people haven't, they never went to school. But But those kids will run around to the grade 8 or till they're 8 years old, and then they're thrown into the public school system. They can't even sit still for 5 minutes. They don't know anything about reading. They don't know anything about writing. They don't know anything about anything. They don't even know how to cooperate with each other. We used to call them yard apes, literally, until they're 8 years old, and put them, what a recipe for disaster. And then they go to school till they finish their basic schooling, and when it comes high school age, you're done. See you later. So that's the prospects there are horrible. And then you get down as you layer onto that the idea of discrimination, different color of skin, and there was a time when Haiti actually invaded the Dominican Republic, took it over, and the way you hear people talk about it, and the way they loathe the people from Haiti, you would think it was 1950 something. Indeed, it was mid 1800s. It goes that far back, but people still, oh yeah. And right now, there's kind of like a Trumpism thing in the government. People there, and they're using the race card to blame the Haitians or dark-skinned people for all the drugs, all the crime, all of taking their jobs, blah blah blah. But it's simply not true. These things happen, but it's not every black person is not a bad person, not causing all these problems. But you wouldn't know it the way the government, especially around election time, that both of the two major parties have have a very discriminatory policy that doesn't allow these people to get settled and recognized as people at all. But they also openly say these people have to go. Whew. That's a long story, with not very many pictures. That's the last slide there, but it's very important you understand the situation that's going on. And it's today, yesterday, 7 people got picked up in Grail by immigration. And what they're doing, they're going in there, you don't have papers, we'll put you on a bus, we're shipping to the border, and there you go. Rodell, remember Rodell, the guy with one bad eye? They got him yesterday, right? We have one family, next slide, please. One family that I support and sponsor down there. One of the boys, 18 going on 19 years old, never been to Haiti, was born right in the Dominican Republic. He got scooped while I was down there sometime this spring and sent to the border. He'd never been to Haiti. Had no idea.
I said, Steve,
It was not a very mature 18-year-old.
Steve, what if they got to go back to Haiti? What's waiting for them there?
He doesn't know anybody.
There's nothing for them, is there?
And it wasn't, except for the fact that there's a humanitarian group that stops these groups at the border and kind of sifts who's who in the zoo. And we were able to get some documentation that really was his, prove that he was Dominican. Then we got that. We basically got a ID card, it was a birth certificate without a picture on it. That we said, hey, that's the guy, that's his birth certificate. We sent it there. Authorities accepted it and they let him back in the country. But that was close, pretty close. And here's shanty towns. Next slide. I'm going to rip through these really quickly. This is an improved water terminus, my friend Peterson. Next slide. This is giving you a sense of the communities that live in. Next slide. They all look great close because we used to take clothes down there. They look like $1 million. Talk about healthcare. Look at this man's right leg. We found this guy. He had a broken leg for 3.5 months. He went to the hospital. Sorry, no insurance, no capacity to pay because he doesn't have any capacity to pay. Sorry, we can't fix your leg. He lived like that for 3.5 years till we found him. We hard and got him sorted out. Next slide. That's the immigration bus that I chased a couple months ago with that 18 going on 19-year-old sitting in the back. I was able to slip him some cash and he had a school ID card. I got that to him. And that probably helped it the other. Next slide. There he is, right there. That's the family. Typical Haitian family. None of these, it's 24, that's the oldest sister. So you got Angelina, you've got Wesley, you've got Angelo, you've got Angelina there, and you've got Angelina's 3 kids in the picture there. Yeah, they have babies early. There's no birth control, there's nothing else to do, and the men have their way, right? And there we go. Next slide. Let's talk about HART. What you can do with groups like HART. Next slide. That's the Puerto Plata. That's the Puerto Plata Airport there. If you've ever been to Puerto Plata, one of the villages, that's Cangreo right there. These stars basically represent bateys that we work in. It's not very long. That runway is only a mile and a half long. They're all in pretty close proximity to the next slide. That's our mission statement. We're just trying to make these disadvantaged and poor people's days a little bit better. Long-term solution, we don't have one. We're not in that game. We're not a foundation. We don't have a lot of money. We're just mom and pops like you and I trying to make things better. This is how we do it. Next. It's that old starfish thing, and we're just looking for to save. If we save one, we're good. So we do stuff like medical when it's necessary. Next slide. Dental. Next slide. Community development. Here we're putting a roof on one of those barracks. Usually you go there in the daytime, all the mattresses will be outside because it's wet. They'd be drying. You get molds, all that mildew, all that kind of stuff, lots of respiratory disease from that, not to mention all the other stuff, that kids get infections from. This solved a big problem. Next slide, get them dry. That's that batey I showed you with the two buildings in Cangreo, and this was the service building. This is a bunch of Rotarians with a bunch of their local friends. I think, how can I see?
My butt's there bent over.
That was your butt there somewhere.
Yeah.
Anyways,
On the right.
yeah. This was a paint the town day. Next slide.
Weren't you there, Eleanor? Were you helping paint that day?
Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
yeah, she was.
Yeah.
We painted.
One of the things we do, we've opened a Montessori school in that village next door. And your club, I think, one year had a global district grant to bring some of the materials in. Next slide. We've got English as a second language program going right now. Next slide. Imagine you in Rotary doing some stuff. Next slide. You could do this. Global grants, big projects. We're associated with a Norwegian charity in Batey Punch Potato. Next slide. And basically they had an idea that they were going to build a community center. Next slide. And we went, oh man, you build it. Rotary's great at filling it up with equipment and stuff. Next slide. The owner, Mika, who was the member of their running that charity, said, yeah, I've got an idea. I want to put a feeding program in there. I want to put a school in there. I want to put a medical center in there. And we convinced her she also needed a dentist office next. And I think I know Ann, Larry contributed for sure. We raised 120,000 Canadian dollars and we're getting it done. It's 95% complete. The medical center is all set up. Next slide. The dental clinic has been operating. We've still got some problems with some electricity. We're gonna have to redo it because we're browning out. Once we get that fixed, it's up and running. It's the only facility with digital x-ray in the whole region. So what we ended up with here is a community development office here. We have the medical office there, a kitchen over there, which we've outfitted. There's a dining room there. On the bottom here is where the dental clinic is. We have a library, which Rotary is sponsored. And we also have a Montessori school operating back there. All the stuff on the inside, 95% of it, Rotary projects. Rotarians have gone in there and done either district grants or the one global grant. Make it up next. Let's keep imagining. Next slide. You could be on the next heart mission. Next. Here's Grumpy's project. This is what he started with. Next slide. That's what these individual shacks look like on the inside of that. We happen to get our hands on a couple of them. Next slide. That's what it looks like on the inside. The 2 units, we knocked the wall out, but you can see the termites are going bonkers here on this building. It's not going to be around much longer. Next slide. So Grump came down and made a difference. He left the roof because we don't have a huge budget, and we started building a public bathroom because nobody's got a bathroom. Nobody's got a bathroom. They still go in the field, poop in the field or a 5-gallon bucket and then take it outside and poop and dump it in the field. Open defecation, not good for many reasons. So we put in a septic inside next. And that's when Grump's done, that's what it looked like. Next slide. Very basic, one toilet. We've got it. We've also, what you can't see is right where I'm standing, taking the picture. There's a big barrel of water. And basically it's a bucket to flush because when the water's not running. And here we have spigots, small person shower, tall person shower. Next slide. There we are. Could be you next. You didn't see is Richard Denton, our district governor. Yeah, you've seen this down before. Next story. Next slide. Next slide. This one's cool. This is a car. Remember Wasaga Beach, and this is Wilbur Joseph. You don't see that, but he's kind of our eyes and ears on the ground there. That's a big man hug with. We hadn't seen each other for quite a while, and boom. They like us. Here's our upcoming missions. 24, number 24 in November, the whole month, and mission 25 somewhere between January and April, probably end of January, beginning of February. Next slide. If you want more info, get hold of me, heart.org. And we're going to be going back into, next slide, Kingrail to do some more stuff. You know, we can't build without only getting hold of land, and Grumpy doesn't know this yet because it just happened. We made a deal. I gotta get myself oriented here. So it's here. That house right there. This building right here, I just bought for 4,000 Canadian. And we're negotiating for this land right here. That would be a great place to build a community center, a 2-story community center where we can have the Montessori school upstairs, because we have the Montessori school in this village. We have 2 Montessori schools we're operating. One up here, but we're paying rent. And it's also very noisy at the front of the back. Back here, it's nice and quiet, and we could build that there. I think it's Barry Veronia that wants to get in and get going here fairly soon, but I got to get the property next. Yeah, we go in here. We've also this is all fixed up. Grump's got this side done. I come into another unit on the back side, and I think I'd like to continue this along and make people who are living there's lives just a little bit better. Next. Yep, got a bathroom next. That's the picture of the place I just got. Next.
Where do you buy your materials?
Locally. Yeah, everything's local. Yeah, we spend our money local. Next. Let's look into the land that we're trying to get that other laid. Next.
Is that Stephanie's?
Yeah, Stephanie's land. Our 5 brothers decided to sell. And we're getting, get about 66% positivity rate on that one right now. And here's some of our friends that live right across from Banyo. Very happy to see Grumpy. Sad to see him leave. Next slide. There's Carlito doing his thing. And there's my president, Kevin. You know, we're basically just ready to open that dental clinic. Next slide. So I didn't get into the stuff about saving Andreina. I introduced you to her in that one photo. We found her at 18 months, failed to thrive, with less than 2 months to live. And now she's a vibrant 8-year-old girl who a lot of us know. And I'm not a grandfather officially yet, but I am when she sees me in the village. She comes diving in my arms. Good thing there. And you can see we are making these communities a little bit better. Water, schools, English is a second language. We have arts programs, sports programs, and you know, we're not saving the whole world, but we're making a difference in a couple of people's lives. Next slide. Hey, my friends at Innisfil, thank you very much for not only your time and attention, but allowing me to inform you a little bit more about a thing that I like to do, a thing that many of your members and honorary members like to do. But also just a reminder that this could be you. It can be you, right? It's one of the most noble causes is to serve others, and give yourself a chance to think about not only what you have done, but what you can do. You don't have to do it through heart, but just get out there, serve your community, serve your fellow citizens, and live the good life. Make it so that they will take
Stop
you
talking.
to
Questions? I have one, actually, once here, jot it down. But has there been an appeal to the Canadian government for asylum for any of these people in this particular town if they're literally in limbo?
Actually, yes, there's actually a chap, Benny Charles, is in Toronto right now. He came from Haiti. He was one of our translators many years ago. He got his way to the United States, tried to claim asylum there, was unsuccessful, and then somehow found his way to Montreal and repeated the claim. The way the law works is you have to, the first country that you land in is where you can claim asylum. After that, you can't do it. So that was denied. But he's been here for 4 months. He appealed, and then he got another hearing for permanent residency, and to get through that pass, and they declined that, but he's still here because he appealed that. I don't think he's going to be successful. I think he's going to be removed, unfortunately. Unless the meeting between Bush or the three amigos, there's some talk about immigration policy changes. Maybe that's going to give the people in Haiti a break, because it was recognized that they need help.
Yeah, if you wanted to, so I mean, that looks great, looks like it'd be a venture that some people remember forever kind of thing. But is there some place you can go to see what a typical life of you being a volunteer, there's like a typical day? I mean, it looks great, but it looks.
I think exactly who you're saying. Beside a whole bunch of others have actually done this trip, and yeah, we're all living encyclopedias.
You get 3 meals and just by the time.
It's well planned, trust me. You get up in the morning, you're in a hotel that's right on the ocean. It's beautiful there. You have an air conditioned room. It's the only place on that resort that's actually air conditioning on good days. It's a solid 2.5 star, but the ocean's there. That's very cool. You have wonderful meals. So the food is fantastic. They actually provide us with food for in the field as well, and coolers and stuff. They give us, typically on days where we're feeding the kids in the village, they'll give us containers, big water containers full of milk that's been filled with protein powders, and that might be the only meal those kids get some days, and we hand it out in whatever cups they bring to us to fill. Then you spend your day in the village doing whatever the assignment is on the big board that you get in the morning. It's very organized by Steve and his crew. And then you go out in the field and you either do medical, dental, construction, or you're playing with the kids and you're doing activities. And it could be in one of 5 villages that are out there. And then you're on the big party bus that everybody goes and bounces around on. Get
So
to
it's
the
pretty
spot.
cool, like you kind of.
You know what you're doing.
you're doing.
Absolutely, every day. Yep, and you get your supplies. We usually have one hotel room that's just for stuff we brought with us in our big hockey bags that we all bring. And then it's all distributed throughout whatever village is in need. Sometimes you go to see people in the hospital and give them some help or whatever we're providing to them. And then at the end of it all, you come back at the end of the day before it gets so hot you can't move out there anymore. And you come, and as a community of heart, you hang out at the pool, you cool off, then there's a beautiful dinner every night, it's a different theme to it, and there's karaoke, and we all get together and share our stories every night about what adventure you have either sadly saw or if you really had a aha moment as a Rotarian. And it's an amazing, amazing thing, and everyone here should try it.
There's a 17-week interview of when we first did the first road trip for us in 2012. And it brought everybody to tears. And we've actually taken on the road so that other folks have been able to see.
And we have
If you go once, you'll go 15 times.
Yeah. And Heather Bailey Brown did a video for us that you played at multiple district conferences on your laptop and showed to people of our club. It's on YouTube. The Heart Mission, Rotary Club of Innisfil Heart. You can still watch it, and it shows our experience. There's Eleanor, there's Al, there's me, and Doug Weaver, and we talk about the experience we had and what we did, handing out clothes. There's a story that Sean likes to tell that I'll tell for you about we went to give out eggs and kids supplies, toys and clothing at one church one day, and they did a big presentation for us, so they stayed, they carry on. And then we give them an egg and their cup of protein powdered milk. And the little guy came to Sean and said, "Can you cut it?" So he had his knife and he cut the egg in half. And then he said, "Cut it again," because he was the only one in his family that got the egg, because he was the only one that was small. He went back and had this egg cut 4 times and shared it with the other kids in his house. And those are things you can't forget.
Steve, I just wanted, so for Steve to tell you the conditions, how terrible they are, it would take all day. And it's hard to just get right, but I have a quick story. Well, the year we went, we took a young lady, she was a dentist in Thornton, and a very competent young lady, a good dentist. And a lot of the people there, there was still some sugar cane, and they would be sucking on sugar cane all day, and their teeth were rotten. And the teeth led to other problems. But anyway, she was set up in a courtyard with a generator going and their little drill going. And a lot of the people she saw was the first time they'd seen a dentist, the first time. And I'll never forget, she stopped, she walked off to a corner, and she leaned against the building, she started crying. And she couldn't stop. And some people consoled her, and eventually she was okay, she went back to work. And that night she told her story over dinner. And I'll tell you, there wasn't a dry eye in the place. So it would, as I say, for the conditions, the squalor, what they put up with, the terrible conditions, you have to be there to really appreciate it. And when our club took this on, they said to me, "Al, what have we done? What are we doing? We can't handle this." Well, we went, and when we came back, not one of them said we shouldn't have done it. Everyone to a person said it was one of the best things they'd ever done in their life. So, Steve?
I think just to wrap things up, basically you're starting your presentation about how doing things like this are the most important things we will ever do in our lives. To continually help people like that, it's an inspiration. And thank you so much for this. I'm sold. If I can work it in for either November or January, I'm there. It's just a matter of figuring those logistics in life. It's always fun, but thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything. And thank you for a wonderful presentation. We'll just have 7 minutes left in the meeting. So Jeff and Jamie, I understand we're still short. We're short. How?
Have maybe 8 or 9 in right now.
Okay. So time is of the essence. If people can begin, if you're just starting conversations with somebody, get in there. Start it, because we need to get this done as fast as possible.
So I had 5 places and I sold 3 out of 5. I'm on the spot, they judge on the spot. The kind of expectations I have is want to make sure it goes out before the kids start of school. So which means we gotta.
Yeah, so let's keep moving on that one. Does anybody else really need literature from Jamie? Anybody else need a hard copy or like that? If we can maybe coordinate this more.
Everyone's got digital copies.
I asked Jeff for a digital copy.
I'll send it to you.
Check this out.
I guess I'm gonna have to, because
I'm not looking forward to you right now, so.
okay. Do you have the copy that Jeff's name was changed to the pen Al's on it?
Yeah.
I believe that was correct.
But I didn't get it, I didn't get it. I don't know where
Teresa
to
sent
find it.
me the copies, because I put out a program asking for it, and I got a copy from Teresa. So
Oh, did you? Okay.
So if you want, I can send that out.
Can you please, because mine are all
Just,
handwritten.
yeah, it's fine if you get multiple copies, as long as you've got it. Okay, excellent. Anything else for that? All right. Quickly then, baseball update very, very simply. So Jeff and I delivered one of the polls to Ron Haste yesterday. He's going to be doing poll number 2. His concept is brilliant, absolutely magnificent. It's going to be incredible. And there's 3 other artists I'm just waiting to get a thumbs up for. So we're moving fast on this one. It's going to be really, really cool when this is done. So Steve, just so you know about Richard Denton's Peace Bowl project, we're doing 7. So it's going to be really, really cool.
And just to make people feel
Yes,
better,
sir.
I think you have been in discussion with the town and the
Yep.
library.
I have the authority, the authorization forms right here, already just for me to drop off to Catherine. And Chris at the town, and Gal's son-in-law, I understand, he's reached out, basically, they're gonna follow exactly the same format of agreement as the library, so it's easy.
So will one of them be in, like, for?
The word is still arranging that. The question from Chris is, are we gonna do that ourselves, or do we need town assistance? So Jeff, I was gonna talk to you about that. So, all right. Okay, apple dumpling readings. I went through all the correspondence from Whitney and Al. I know that you have been involved with some schools. We came down to only 2 schools left that completely no communication at all. And I actually dropped in to Elkona Glen being one of them and dropped off a note to the principal, say, please contact me. Nothing. Innisfil Central, same thing. They just will not respond to email. So I'm gonna say, we're not gonna chase them. Unfortunately, I feel bad for the grade 2s, but we now have these books. So we'll have them for next year. So between the books that Whitney still has and the books that I have, we have plenty, and we just gotta figure out how many kids are gonna be needed if we wanna show it up. So yeah, we'll just plan that for the next year readings. Onion Fest volunteer sign up. I have forms. I'm gonna start, we're tight on time now, so if you want, we can do this next week. But the concept was online signups are great, but sometimes actually seeing the form right in front of you may entice people to do better. So I'm gonna get the actual dates and times worked out, and then so that people can actually start picking schedules, so that we can be way ahead of schedule, knowing exactly what we need. So if we have to reach into Rotary or one of the other clubs and say, hey, pass on some people, reciprocation, whatever, either we help Barry with Camden Fest and they help us with this, whatever. And there's that. So, okay. Janet, do you have anything for Learning Corner?
Just one of the things that I kind of want to bring up is in 2024, there's going to be an amazing event come up, and it's actually the solar eclipse. And we're going to have a full solar eclipse along the 401 corridor. So if you are interested in that kind of thing, book your rooms now, because I'm sure it's going to be crazy. But when Ken and I were taking our motorcycles through Wisconsin, we actually had the luxury of seeing a solar eclipse in Wisconsin, and we used colanders from the whole the restaurant that we were in to actually see it. And it was real, because you can't look at it, right?
No.
So, but it's something to put in your calendars ahead of time. It's a little bit of a different, interest content than our Rotary. We had a lot of Rotary today, so I thought I'd share it with the solar eclipse. Now, there is 2 usually every year, but they're different parts of the world. So we don't get them very often.
Thank you.
Tim, one last thing. Does anyone have a card for the storage units you get in?
I do.
Can I borrow that, please?
I have,
Yeah, yours on you?
that's in my truck.
Okay, you can get it now. Thank you. All right, 50-50.
Okay, I will add you to this one.
Is it the truth?
It is the truth. I changed the $5 petition.
Shake it well. Don't put it on top of the pile.
Ready? Last 3 numbers, 835.
Did you get it?
All
I
right,
did too.
She did not.
fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody. This has been a wonderful meeting. We are right on time, so